Just gone 10:46, and I'm very happy to say I'm joined in the studio by Greg Proops, stand-up comedian who most of you will know from Whose Line Is It Anyway? I certainly do. He's on tonight in Whelan's performing a podcast which Rolling Stone magazine describes one of the 10 best comedy podcasts in the world, and if you can try and get in, please do. Mr. Proops, I can't describe what an honour it is to see you.
Hello, Tom. It's nice to be here. Thank you.
You have been part of my life since the very early days of Whose Line Is It Anyway? I used to watch that show in awe.
Oh, kittens. And here we are.
It came, just tell me, you started this, because at the time, when it came on with Clive Anderson, I literally couldn't believe what you were doing. It was very, very new to TV audiences.
Oh, yeah, sure. Well, I mean, it was fun to do. I'd been doing improv in college and stuff like that, and they just figured out a way to put it on TV, I think, really.
How did that start? How did you start doing that in college?
I was doing stand-up, and I lived in the dormitories at San Francisco State, and they had an improv group that played downstairs in the cantina, and they did an audience spot, and I watched them do it one week, and I thought, well, I can do that. And so I sat in the front row the next week, and they said, can we have a volunteer? I jumped up.
And this improv, for those who don't know, is just, how would you describe it?
For lazy actors who don't want to learn lines, and you just make stuff up at the top of your head. They play little games and whatnot, and you're supposed to just make everything up. So it's different than stand-up. It's not written beforehand.
See, you think that's lazy. I think it's beyond genius. I think, how can you be put on the spot?
I agree. It's beyond genius. That's what I meant. I meant to say what I do is beyond. What I do is amazing.
How can you be put on the spot and always think of something?
Well, sometimes you don't, and then failing is important too. To fail well
keeps you going. Exactly. How did you go from that in a college setting to appearing on our TV screens?
Well, years went by, the passage of time, the movement of glaciers, mastodons lived and died. I was doing stand-up, and then they did an audition in San Francisco. I was on the road. Then the next year they came back, thank goodness, and I got on the show then. That was right after the war. We had just showed Fritz a thing or two. We were on steam-powered TV, and then I was on the show. Ran for 14 years. We did 10 years in England and 4 years in the States. It
kind of it broke the ice really for a lot of new stand-up and new TV shows. I think all those shows came from there. Mock the Week, all of them can trace the week. They can trace it back to that moment. Yeah, absolutely. And we have another one coming out in America in July that we did last year in England, of all places, with a lot of the cast from the Whose Line, me and Colin and whatnot. There was a bit of a laugh there on Mock the Week. Did I detect?
I didn't love doing Mock the Week. It was it wasn't like Whose Line. Whose Line, we were all mates, and we really threw the ball to each other. It was a little more like a team.
Yeah.
Mock the Week was more like an embryonic lamb dropped into a piranha tank.
And a bit more. Sometimes you just have to hear what he says and write it down. A bit more formulaic, possibly, than Whose Line was. It didn't appeal to me as much, and I didn't find the kind of love and support that we had on our show. The chemistry on Whose Line used to be just absolutely incredible. Yeah. You got the impression you knew each other, and there were times you felt you were really putting it up to each other. There were times when you felt, there's no comeback from this.
Oh, absolutely. No, we teed each other up, and we pimped each other too. So it was really good fun.
And Clive Anderson in the midst of all that as well.
I don't remember him very well.
Yeah, he seemed like a very unusual person to have in that.
He was one of the quickest people I've ever met in my life, and I always had a good time ranking on him because that seemed to be our shtick. So,
yeah.
Well, I mean, when you're a barrister and you have no neck, and then all of a sudden you're supposed to be funny, it's just hard for the public, I think, to love you.
I think we saw his struggle and we appreciated it.
Yeah.
Was part of the charm. I was looking at the show. Tell people a bit about the show you're doing tonight, because it's very different.
This is a podcast. It's called The Smartest Man in the World. It's a joke. I don't think I'm the smartest man in the world. I had a friend, I started doing the podcast a couple years ago, and he was like, I was like, I don't know what to call it. And he said, well, you know how you come off. You come off like you're the smartest man in the world. So do a show where you take questions and brook no dissent. And I'm like, that's hilarious. So that's what I do. I take questions from the audience. We're going to talk to the audience. I take questions on email, and I talk about whatever comes into my mind. I mean, we'll be talking about Aung San Suu Kyi's rock concert she gave last night here in Dublin, and having to spend the day with Bono and whatnot, and everything that's going on that I can find out in the papers.
I went through some of your shows. I was intrigued, and I was trying to see my take versus yours. Well, firstly, one thing struck me, they seem to be alphabetical. Is that an accident?
Yeah, I don't name them. The producers name them.
All right, but you know, one night all of the things you talked about seemed to begin with you. Another night, I can't name any of them because there's a bad word in it. The following night, everything you talked about began with L. You talked about Louis Armstrong, lobsters, and Levon Helm.
Oh yeah, the producers pull that stuff out and they do the alliteration. Although I did talk about lobsters, Levon Helm, and Louis Armstrong. Levon Helm died when I was in Chicago, so that was a different show. But so like tonight it'll be Aung San Suu Kyi, apples, and airplanes.
All right, apples. Yes. Very good. I'm getting it. Will you talk about England football team at all?
England's football team?
Yeah,
or your football team?
Well, you can talk about ours. What is there to say?
Well, nothing much. Just that I think it's exciting that Ireland was so generous. You go overseas like that and you give and you give. And I think a lot of teams would have tried to win more. And I think it's just special that you would want other teams to feel better about themselves. Although Spain doesn't need to feel better about themselves, quite frankly. No. England, who are they playing? Ukraine?
They're playing Ukraine.
Did they lose?
No, they play tonight.
Oh, they play tonight. I don't see them winning. I mean, the Ukraine went through, nuclear disaster, Russian tanks, every manner of mayhem. I don't see them being afraid of the English team at all.
No. Music comes up very often in your things you talk about.
Yes. I love music, and not so much the music of today, but the music of yesterday when people sang and played. It's nice to be in Ireland to see people play music live and stuff like that. I get very tired of the, pre-programmed music that passes for pop now. I always think I really didn't want my microwave oven to write me a song that much, and that's what it feels like a lot of the time.
You mentioned Paul McCartney, Sgt. Pepper.
Did I?
You did, yes. Is there love for him?
Yeah, there's always love for Paul McCartney. It goes back. He's prematurely brunette. He's a very exciting. I met him once and he was dead nice. So it's horrible when I make fun of him because he was always nice to me. I'm certain he thinks the world of me. I don't know that I'll be talking about Paul tonight, although he played at the Jubilee a couple of weeks ago, and he kind of hammered through Live and Let Die, which was... I liked Grace Jones better at the Jubilee because she hula hooped through her whole number, and if Paul would do that, I would like him gooder. I think he should hula hoop next time.
There's every chance. Baristas, that was one you talked about. Now, you're in the world, baristas, coffee... coffee and I was starting my take on this.
I'm getting the feeling, Tom, that you haven't listened to the shows. You've merely read the description of all of them, and that you're just throwing out the words that I didn't write, that my producers wrote.
No, I did listen to them, but then I fell on the way in, and when I woke up, all I could remember was
barista.
Words.
Yeah, I don't remember what I said about baristas, but my goodness, they're hardworking. I know what it was. I was talking about Paula Abdul, who's an American, you know who she is.
Yeah,
and she hosted American Idol or whatever that show was, where they bring on poor half-wits and untalented people and they humiliate them.
Yes.
And Simon Cowell pretends like he knows something about music or has a human heart. So this is a charade we go through every week in America. And Paula was on the show for a while. And then she was on her own show, a reality show. And because her personality split into a million different pieces, they took her to a Starbucks and she got up there and went, "Make what you want." And I said, how many times has this poor barista had to be on a reality show? How many Kim Kardashians, how many Paula Abduls has this guy had to face? I felt bad for the barista now that I remember what you...
Aren't you glad?
I couldn't be more... I'm chuffed beyond all measure. I'm ecstatic.
And I have a list longer than my arm. I could keep you here for days.
I'll stay. Days. I have nothing to do.
Days. I'm going to head along tonight, so I'm really looking forward to this.
That'll be fun.
Yes, and I'll be...
We might be in the bigger room.
Can I bring questions?
We're starting in the smaller room. Well, yes, you can bring questions. Like I said, I take questions from the audience at the end. That's the last part of the show.
At the beginning of the show.
It's funny what people ask. I have a lot of women who listen to the show because I talk a lot of feminist stuff, and I talk about women a lot and how men aren't really getting it together. And women will ask a question like, some sort of thing, and what do you think about this? And guys will go, who is better, Sonic Youth or the Nirvana? That's like the kind of questions white guys in their 30s ask, because everything's a value judgment when you're... I don't know what happened to the 30-something white guys, but I find them to be... Can I say the word douche de bange on your radio?
I think you have.
Yeah. To me, it's a really weird time period for me. Maybe it's because I'm way older than that now. And maybe I was the same when I was in my 30s, too. But white 30-something guys feel so empowered to know everything on Earth at all times. And it really drives me up a bloody wall.
Right, and the female questions are so much better.
Well, not that they're so much better, but women don't want a comparison between one band and another as a question when you're asking someone.
No.
You can ask me anything you like in the world, and guys will go like, well, how come you don't like Rush better than you like Gentle Giant? And you're like, because no one cares. That's why. All right, you care in your room with your leather pants. That's what you care about.
I see one or two Rush fans sadly ripping up their ticket. I won't be going tonight after all.
You know, I've made a go at Rush so bad, but then I had to back off because Geddy Lee is the lead singer is a huge Negro Leagues baseball fan, and so am I, and he donated this enormous boon to the Negro League Museum. So 2 weeks ago, I apologized to him profusely on the air. Well, not apologized. I sort of talked around him. Apologies are confusing.
Greg, it's been an absolute pleasure meeting you.
That's it? We're not going to talk any more baristas?
Well, I can throw unfeckable bands. It's a different word we say here. Car share movies, Sergeant Pepper.
Oh, yeah, the unsexable bands. That one's gone on and on and on. We may bring that back tonight because we're in Ireland and there's a few bands to talk about.
Oh, I was in one of them.
Will you tell me the name of the band?
Something happens.
Oh, okay.
See, I told you wouldn't know.
Well, I thought I might know. Were they 80s band?
No, early 90s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just about.
I love it.
I'll slip you a CD. Greg, thank you very much for coming in. Ladies and gentlemen, Greg Proops. Tonight, Whelan's, don't miss it.